We learned yesterday afternoon, and I guess fair to say this is a pretty big story, surprising
I'll
story.
say.
Former Justice Minister David Lametti resigning as a Liberal MP. He's going to be going into private practice with a law firm here in Montreal. And David Lametti is on the line right now. First of all, thank you so much for coming on with us. We appreciate the time today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Let me get to the big question. I read in the statement or part of the interview given to La Presse, you said that this idea of leaving government and resigning as an MP, you made it with some sadness because you called it originally your dream job. So when you say with some sadness, why are you leaving then?
Well, obviously the situation's changed. As a jurist, I wanted to be Minister of Justice, and I was Minister of Justice for 4.5 years, Attorney General. It is, in addition to being a great position around the cabinet table, I would argue for a jurist, it's the position around the cabinet table. I did my best every single day. I worked hard. I think I've got a great track record of accomplishments in that 4.5 years. I was left off cabinet the last time around, and look, that was a decision that came as a surprise to me. I appreciate that it is the Prime Minister's decision and it's his prerogative, and I accept that. I tried to find other ways to continue to serve, trying to find areas of interest and other ways to have an influence on policy. But I've been finding it difficult, I have to admit. And so I began to look at other opportunities, and I think this is a good time for me to move to a firm, a great firm, Baskins, out of Montreal, but a national firm, into areas that are of abiding interest to me. So reconciliation on the ground, so UNDRIP, resource development projects, critical minerals, and complying with UNDRIP because they lie on First Nations land, and the whole tech, artificial intelligence, blockchain side of things, which I worked a lot with Minister Baines, but I also did a fair bit when I was a law professor.
Well, congratulations on that new role. I suspect you have some guesses as to why you weren't given a cabinet position. Do you want to share any of those with us?
Well, I never really got any more than you got. So in the public sphere, I was told I got lost in a numbers game, and I understand that cabinet construction is about many factors. It's about many kinds of representation. I tell the story when I first got elected. Monique Jérôme Forget told me that she created many cabinets with Jean Charest, and she said, "Mr. Lametti, you're good, but don't take it personally if you're not in cabinet. There are many other factors," and that guided me for many years, and I reminded myself of that this summer when it happened. There are a lot of factors. Proud of my record, not a question of my competence, and so I got lost in a numbers game. That's honestly the best I know. There have been people who've speculated for, this political reason or that political reason, helping other people who might be in more trouble electorally. Again, I don't know that any of that is true, and it might all be true.
Well, let me offer up then this speculation, because we had chatted at the time when the language law was being changed or when Bill 96 had come out in Quebec. I remember we'd had you on a couple of times, and at the beginning, and I recall you talking about, the fact, or telling the Quebec government that the notwithstanding clause was never intended to be used in a preemptive manner. That got you in hot water in Quebec. François Legault came out and basically told you, it's none of your business. And then after that, I had the sense, and I think Natasha and I talked about this, we had the sense that the Prime Minister must have come to you and said, you know what, pull back, don't keep talking about this, because I know subsequently we didn't have you on very much to talk about this, and then a lot of people started wondering, why isn't the Justice Minister bringing this up? Is he being silenced by the PMO?
No, I don't think that's accurate, in the sense that I came out pretty strongly and said we were against it, and that we were going to pursue the court case when it got to the Supreme Court. And, my successor, Minister Virani, is maintaining that line. And to be honest, I think that's the only line that can win, that has a chance of winning. And I still believe that in terms of legal strategy, I think the best possible way, perhaps the only possible way to win that case at the Supreme Court of Canada is to let that case run through the court system. And we've got Superior Court decision. We're waiting for a Court of Appeal decision. People were talking about a reference. My view is that we would have lost a reference 2 years ago. We're asking the Supreme Court to overturn its own precedent. So it takes changes on the ground, and for that to happen, you need a better court record. That's what I think we're getting. Hopefully, we have a chance of winning that. But I don't think so. I don't think that has. That had changed. I don't think it has changed, and I don't think it's the reason why I was left out. I was a strong voice for the English language community and the Allophone community around the cabinet table. I worked hard with Anthony Housefather to try to amend the parts of C-13 that I think symbolically were challenging. I don't particularly think they have a legal impact. The references to the Quebec Language Charter, I differ with Anthony on that, but I did work with him. My team worked with him to try to make those amendments in the House of Commons, and we failed because of the NDP. But but I don't think that's the factor either. I think we had a pretty good working group, and we served, I think, the English community well, and we had strong voices. And there will be other strong voices, I hope, now that I'm not at the table.
Yeah, but I would just add that as a Quebec MP, right, I wondered if your opinion, your comments, re-Bill 96 and the notwithstanding clause and the eventual challenge kind of roil the federal government or the PMO, because, the idea, of course, is never to upset Quebec too much, at least not the government in power. Did that ever come up, or would you have heard of that coming up?
Well, look, we always discuss relationships. I'm not going to say exactly what was said at Cabinet because I can't do that. But it's certainly, we discussed relations with Quebec as, in a variety of different groups, as MPs, Quebec caucus, as Cabinet ministers. And we, as we did with other provinces, there are other relationships out there too. I don't, to be honest, I don't believe that that's a factor of me having been left out of Cabinet. I will continue to advocate. I put up a Facebook post. I'm one of the people that came to McGill from somewhere else and ended up staying because I love this place. And I think what's happening with the Quebec universities is the Quebec Anglophone universities is a tragedy that's going to weaken the fabric of not just English-speaking parts of Quebec, but all parts of Quebec.
I'm imagining, how you're feeling today, and I'm thinking as you, leave this role and step into your new role, you're at Fasken, you're probably taking stock a lot, and you mentioned that you're proud of your record. I find myself very curious, like as MP and as Justice Minister, what are you most proud of that you did in that time?
Well, as a Justice Minister, I'm really proud of UNDRIP. I think it will transform Canadian society. I'm really proud of a lot of the criminal justice reform that we brought in. Again, I think it will help in a number of different ways, in just not just fighting racism, but also declogging the court system. And quite proud of the bill that's not done yet, which is the Criminal Cases Review Commission, which is long overdue in Canada. We've had so many high-profile cases of people who've been wrongfully convicted. I promised David Milgaard I would get this done before I left office, before he died. Unfortunately, he died. And I'm hoping my successor gets it across the line. As an MP, I'm really proud of the work we've done with my constituents, and I'm proud of the apology that I helped craft to the families of Italian Canadians interned during the Second World War.
Mr. Lametti, we want to thank you for your time, also for your service. I mean, I guess you realize when you get a job like Justice Minister, not a lot of job security necessarily attached to it. So I'm not sure. Did you actually consider that after what happened with Jody Wilson-Raybould? Was that something that went through your mind?
You serve at the pleasure of the Prime Minister, and you get named, and your time ends, and you've got to accept the good with the bad.
Would you have? I'm just curious. Whatever. Just would you have accepted if offered another portfolio? Would you have accepted to stay a cabinet position?
I think at the time the shuffle happened, to be honest, I was kind of expecting another cabinet position because I'd been Minister of Justice for 4.5 years. I'm with Anne McClellan, with the longest serving Liberals. So I thought I would be changed. if you'd asked me a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I was pretty much set on my, or 2 months ago, I was pretty much set on my new route. And so I think nothing would have kept me at this stage. I've been working on this for a while, and I think I'm going to be happy.
Well, we
Yeah,
wish
you
you
said
luck.
you're smiling. Glad to hear that.
Yeah,
Glad to
absolutely.
hear that.
Thank you so much for taking the time, and best of luck. Hope we can speak to you again in the future.
Thanks to you both.